Alright, Josh Rubin from East West Healing and Performance. Today I want to talk to you about eczema. Eczema is a skin condition that people get. It's very common. They get it on their elbows. They can get it on other places of the body, but you typically see it on people, usually on their arms and their elbows. And a lot of people really don't know what it is. And I'm not here to diagnose and tell you exactly what it is or where it's coming from, because as you know, I take an individualized approach, really looking at the person in front of me and saying, by assessing them, using subjective assessments and maybe some lab tests, figuring out why this person has eczema. Now, if we look at the skin is actually the largest organ in the body. It's actually one of the detoxification organs. So at that point, we can really get a big clue that something is overloading the detox system in the body. You have the liver, you have the kidneys, the colon, the skin, the lungs, on and on and on. So there's 5 organs of detoxification. So it's being overloaded. And anytime you see things on the skin, you can start thinking that the internal system is really toxic and things are starting to make its way to the surface. And as I said before, these toxins make their way from the center of the body, meaning if you have things on your arms or hands or toes and legs, that means the detox or the toxification is actually more systemic, more chronic per se. It's going to be harder to get rid of. So what causes eczema? What is eczema? Psoriasis, things like that. Well, there's many different reasons why people have eczema. It could actually, from birth, if the mother actually has a GI system that's too alkalinic, a stomach that's too alkalinic, a stomach that is inhabited by too many toxic pathogens, if a GI system that has candida overgrowth, a vagina that doesn't have enough lactobacillus and bifidobacter in it, whatever happens to that baby, whether it's a vaginal birth, a C-section, breastfed, all those toxins are actually fed to the child, and it literally predisposes them to skin conditions. And I've seen this in actually younger and younger children. We're actually working with a client in Florida, and the baby's about 2 years old and suffering with severe eczema all over their body. And you really look at the mother, and the mother will struggle with GI problems and vaginal infections, forever. So she actually predisposed the baby to it. So we can kind of steamroll that to adult life. Now, obviously, there's many factors nutritionally, stress, on and on and on. There's a lot of internal, external, environmental things that can cause eczema to actually kind of overgrow. But some of the major things in the body that can actually create it is a high HCl deficiency. Now, this can happen from many different things, from pathogens like H. pylori, from inflammation, from eating crappy foods, from stress, from eating too many raw vegetables, from eating too many carbohydrates in relation to protein and fats, not eating enough protein, being vegetarian, on and on and on. So when you actually become HCl deficient, or you could actually be zinc deficient, thiamine deficient from having a hormone imbalance, too much stress, folate deficient, on and on and on. All these things create an HCl deficiency. When you create an HCl deficiency, you actually create an alkalinic environment. The foods that you eat start to putrefy, rancidify, ferment, and you actually start to feed pathogenic bacteria. The pathogenic bacteria start to overgrow. You create dysbiosis. This dysbiosis actually feeds the pathogens, which overloads the immune system, because over 70% of your immune system is in your gut. That actually starts to overload your liver and gallbladder, which overloads your detoxification system. It keeps compounding itself, and there you go, you have eczema. Some other reasons, like I said, are liver gallbladder dysfunction or liver gallbladder insufficiency, pancreatic insufficiency. That usually develops from an HCl deficiency, because if the food from the stomach coming through to the small intestine is not acidic, the pancreas and liver really don't get activated. They don't release the enzymes that they're supposed to activate. So now when that food hits the small intestine, it's alkalinic, it once again starts to putrefy. That's where you absorb most of your food. You can't absorb it. You become malnutrition. The food just sits there. It acidifies, putrefies, ferments. You get malabsorption issues like leaky gut. You start developing food intolerances, which is another reason why people have eczema. You overload the immune system, overload the detox system, and we have eczema. Some other reasons are you can actually have pathogens like bacterial infections like Yersinia, H. pylori, on and on and on. Other types of parasites like pinworms and hookworms and Blastocystis hominis, and on and on. All different types of parasites, and even fungal overgrowths. These things actually, we create the environment for them from lifestyle, from foods, on and on and on, from stressors. But the bottom line is, if you keep eating foods, your body can't break them down, and the very foods you're eating, especially carbohydrates, actually ferment and feed the pathogen. And now you actually start creating toxic biomarkers, which overload the immune system, overload the detox system, on and on and on. It could just be a detoxification overload from maybe eating foods that are just filled with crap, preservatives, colorings, emulsifiers, deodorizers, on and on and on. Eating a lot of boxed food, canned food, too much coffee, eating a lot of trans fatty acids, on and on and on. These foods can overload your detox system, literally cause the stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas issues I just talked about, in small intestine, which once again can cause eczema. Another major one, which I kind of talked about, is food intolerances. I found that most people create their food intolerances, and the very foods they're eating are actually causing the eczema reactions that you're having. A lot of people say eczema is a candida overgrowth. That's one of the 5 or 6 many reasons why someone can have it. Now, is that true a lot of the time? Yes, because the very foods you're eating, you're actually feeding the bacteria, the fungus, and it's actually overgrowing, which it can cause the eczema. But the eczema is actually a histamine reaction in the body. Histamine is released by different parts of your immune system. And histamine actually causes vasodilation in the body. Now, it's released by, if I remember correctly, I think like basophils, things like that. And it releases other things. But the problem with histamine is it causes a lot of inflammation in the body. And they've shown people with eczema, on our skin, we actually have what's called intracellular cyclic AMP. And we actually have it on our skin to regulate histamine receptors, but also to regulate bacterial and fungal overgrowths. And they've shown that people with eczema from chronic stress, over immune system activation, actually these intracellular cyclical AMP enzymes are actually downregulated. So they actually are inhibited, they're not produced a lot, so now the excess histamine that you're creating from all those inflammatory reactions in the body, from the food intolerances and the foods that you're eating, from the toxins in your body, you can't fight them, your immune system's like on fire. You produce so much histamine, it causes so much inflammation, and now when you get the eczema, your body can't fight it because the intracellular cyclical AMP actually can't fight it and help regulate histamine and fight fungus and bacteria. And they've shown that because of that, the more you scratch, the more histamine you produce. The more histamine you produce, you actually can't regulate it because you're not producing the enzyme. So, what have we learned today? We've learned that there's many reasons why one can have eczema. What do? The first thing you need to do is get assessed by a practitioner. You can't just do everything. But a lot of the times it is an HCl deficiency, pancreatic liver insufficiency. It's a dysbiotic environment in the gut. It's usually overload or overactivity of the immune system, the detox system, and a hypersensitivity, thus increase in histamine. So the bottom line is you need to start eating foods that are basically not full of toxins. You need to use maybe certain herbs with generalizing. Of course, you might want to do a lab. Using a lab to see what's going on is super important. But, you can use herbs such as like, what am I looking for? Gentian, golden seal, scutellaria, Swedish bitters to help produce some HCl in the body. Once that gets regulated, you can use liver and gallbladder, ox bile and pancreatic enzymes to actually help create that orchestra in that system. You can use different herbs or different, mixtures of herbs like a glutamine, marshmallow, slippery elm, or GI Revive, or intestinal repair complex to repair the stomach lining and the small intestine. And then, follow the 4-Hour Gut program on our blog, our YouTube page, on and on. It says 4-Hour Gut Healing Program. But the bottom line is you want to create a non-stressful internal and external environment. Once you eliminate all those foods, you can't just take supplements. Once you've eliminated all the toxic foods, you're eating foods from Mother Earth, good proteins, organic grass-fed meats, and chicken and things like that. You're eating vegetables that aren't GMO and don't have pesticides on them. You're eating healthy fats, saturated fats, on and on and on. Once you've done that, then you can start healing the orchestra inside the body. Because what I find with most people, the very foods that they're eating are actually helping facilitate the problem. Now, of course, you can have it as well from external environment. It could be an allergen to fabric softener and things like that. So you need to think about that. But, it's a 10-minute click. It can't give you all the answers. So hopefully you've learned something and understand what eczema is and understand that we need to downregulate the immune system and histamine. And I've talked about how water, Celtic sea salt, are natural antihistamines. You can do the research onto what else is a natural antihistamine. But the bottom line is the more you reduce your internal and external stressors, the more you give your immune system a time to come down and it actually can fight fight the eczema, the food intolerances, the pathogens, on and on and on. So thanks for tuning in. I'll check you later.